How was the feeling on the bench? You played a solid first period, but you didn't have anything to show for it yet.
Yeah, I think just our mindset going into this game was just to play hard. Hopefully I can get a more of an opportunity up here and continue to help this team win. And I'm just taking it day by day and just like I said, keeping things simple.
Left at center, and it's taken by the spry Teddy Purcell, steaming in, hooks it in front, they score! Cory Conacher gets his first NHL goal.
The dazzling start to Cory Conacher's rookie season continues.
Living the dream of an NHL player, you want to not only play in the NHL, but you want to have a chance to win the Stanley Cup. That's the ultimate dream.
Only 6 of 29 games coming in. They score! Cory Conacher getting a goal.
Cory made the team, and they gave him a housing letter, which is awesome. That's really the telltale sign that you've made the team and you're going to be around for the season. I've always thought he's paid his dues to be in the NHL. Finally, this was going to be his year.
Vinny kicked at it, but Conacher was able to punch it in. Tampa Bay with a 2-0 lead. As Conacher up the middle, swinging and shooting, scores!
Tampa Bay is a team that is projected to finish first in the Atlantic and with the best odds to win the Stanley Cup. I want to be a part of that. Being relentless and being fearless and being hard-nosed and being hard to play against, it takes a toll on your body for sure. Especially with having diabetes. Down here, it's important for me to make sure throughout the game and throughout the day that I'm ready to go to play the nets and to make sure my body's ready for that.
I've always thought that he's got a couple bad breaks here and there, but there's no violins out for Cory Conacher.
I thought maybe that this was the year where, okay, I'd be in Tampa and I'd stay in Tampa.
They approached Cory and said, Ryan Callahan's coming back from injury sooner than we thought. You're the only one that we can send back to the American League.
Getting sent down after they gave me a housing letter, it was tough. That took a big toll on me. I was basically almost in tears.
And he handles it the way a real professional does and said, no problem, I'll go down and I'll make the team better down there. He's in Syracuse right now. But he'll be back, and we're just waiting.
Re-signing with Tampa, I did it because they had a chance to win the Stanley Cup. So it's going to be interesting to see how the season goes forward.
There's a lot of little milestones. When he started smiling, obviously, any and every smile completely melts your heart. I am Callum's mom, and he is my first baby. I love, his hands are always near his face, and it's the cutest thing, but he wakes himself up, because it's like right now.
I mean, Shannon is doing amazing as a first-time mom because it's not easy when you have the other parent not available.
My husband has to leave for work and, be in another country. He's not often around, so it's still an isolating feeling. It's almost like being a single parent, but this is my job, and if I've taken care of Callum in a day, that's where my success comes from. I'm so focused on the baby, I'm like, I should probably brush my teeth, maybe get a shower in, but seriously, you just don't think about it. I'm already a high-stress person, especially being on my own a lot. At times you feel like you're so overwhelmed that you can't almost get through the day. I had postpartum anxiety, and I, talked to some doctors about it. Overnights are very hard for me to be alone. So I've had my mom or my sister come and stay over.
She's only 12 minutes away from me right now, and I can go over as much as I want.
My husband's mom, she's always there to help, and you never feel like a burden. She has 4 kids, and she has 2 grandkids, and we both always dreamed of having a big family.
When she calls, I answer, and I'm there to help whatever I can.
Uh-oh. Do you have your keys? Do you have your purse?
I think they're in the house. When we discovered that we were gonna have problems, we went to a fertility specialist and actually ended up that both my husband and I had different problems that could prevent us from having a baby naturally.
The whole thing was just very emotionally draining on all of us, but especially for Shannon, because she wanted to have a baby so bad.
When Cory was growing up, all he did was wheel around the house in roller hockey skates with a stick in his hand, pretty much from the time he got up in the morning to the time he went to bed. I think because of what he's had to deal with in his life, the odds of Cory doing what he did were stacked against him. Let's talk about his size, being diabetic, and being born in December.
There's this guy, he's really fast, he's really skilled, not very big.
We have him recorded at 5'8". He could be a quarter inch or so lower than that.
Why would Cory put himself in jeopardy as a small guy to go against these massive, big, strong guys that are a foot taller than him in some cases?
I'm a little guy, so I have to, go in those dirty areas and go in front of that and do the little things. No matter who's in the way, I gotta go and get what I want.
Every time Cory's on the ice, I get concerned he's gonna get hurt.
The risk is that the big guys are just gonna overpower you and keep you to the outside where it's harder to score from.
There are coaches along the way that have absolutely discarded him when they saw his height.
Type 1 diabetes, which is what we are talking about in the case of Cory, is an autoimmune condition that destroys the insulin-producing cells of the pancreas.
And it's not until most of those insulin-producing cells are destroyed that children start to develop symptoms. High blood sugars, they start to become more thirsty, they need to use the bathroom more frequently, and eventually the insulin amounts become so low that they start to develop ketoacidosis that makes the blood more acidic, and that causes immediate harm.
When the family doctor said, get to the hospital right away, that was devastating. Like, what is wrong with our son?
Many of our patients, particularly our younger ones, do present in ketoacidosis. They're in the intensive care unit, their families are just totally blown out of the water. 90% of them will not have a family history, so it is entirely unexpected.
It's an obvious disadvantage when you have juvenile diabetes. You have to overcome the physical part of that, the mental part of that, get over that, get into a dressing room with other kids your age. They're asking questions about what's that thing hanging off your body.
Participation in sports adds a layer of complexity. Insulin requirements may be different during times of vigorous sports activities, but those are all things that are very manageable and that we would routinely teach all families.
The part of the juvenile diabetes is when an adult dismisses you because they know that might be a burden for the team, or the coach, or the training staff to have to deal with. And that has happened to Cory. Cory was born December 14th, 1989.
January, February, March are dominant on hockey rosters. And we would never recruit someone just because of their birth month, but you do notice it.
Gladwell, in his book, reported that those born in the last part of the year might as well give up on hockey. And if Cory ever heard that, he would take that as a challenge.
He was 17 years old, and we had guys on our team that were 25 years old. And Cory was going to be competing against those guys, and month didn't matter at that time. So when we evaluate the birth month versus the birth year, the 17-year-old thing was bigger than being born in December.
I would guarantee every player in the NHL can say they, at some point they got a break.
And we felt that Cory was above average in 4 of the 5 criteria, and he was below average in size. I said, well, we're not going to worry about it. If he's dynamic enough, then we would be willing to take that chance. it solidified that match that Conacher and Cory Conacher was a really good fit. Cory Conacher is the only 17-year-old player that I've ever had on the hockey team. Now he's on a mission to get back to the NHL. His dream has never wavered.
I think he's doing everything in his power now in Syracuse to try and get back to Tampa because he wants to prove again that he deserves to be there.
Get your toys, Callum. Get your toys. Good boy. That's a good boy.
My kids always wanted to have kids. And Shannon, you know, I remember when they got married, I think Shannon was 26 and she's thinking right away, like, and within a year or two, we're going to have a baby.
You know, we did some tests, and at one point, the thought was that we maybe couldn't have a biological child at all, which was really hard for both of us. We went to a fertility specialist. We found out we could have a child biologically through IVF.
And there was only 2 viable embryos.
At first, you know, you think I'm young, I'm gonna have so many embryos, I'm gonna be able to have as many kids as I want. You kind of feel like your body betrays you. My husband left for work that year, the first week of September, and the second week of September, I lost the first embryo. I just remember getting the call in my apartment, and I was by myself, and I just like bawled.
Oh my, it was awful. Just the worst call.
For our last one, when I finally got the courage to, I implanted the last embryo by myself, and thank God the pregnancy test was positive. And then come Christmas, my husband still wasn't home, and I started to bleed.
She started bleeding and things. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is the worst.
I thought I miscarried. My one appointment where they were gonna look at, you know, possibly scraping the baby out, they did an ultrasound and there was a heartbeat. I called my husband, literally showed him the ultrasound, and he went crazy. It was all worth it. Like, all the heartache, all the needles, all the jabbing and poking around they did, like the pain, the surgery, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, you totally forget about it when he's here. Deb is like the toughest person I know. I couldn't imagine what she went through. I mean, if someone is to have, you know, a son with bladder exstrophy, not knowing, she didn't know before he was born that he had it. If someone could handle it, it's Debbie. I can't imagine having to watch your son, you know, in so much pain.
So bladder exstrophy was a complete shock in our world. We didn't know anything about it. We were told that it's very rare. I remember distinctly them telling me what was wrong with him. And they said just what we saw was your bladders sitting on your tummy. So then how do you deal with that? It's about a 10-hour operation. Usually they like to do it around day 5. The first part of the procedure is breaking the pelvis and getting the bladder back inside, and then you reconstruct the pelvis. The biggest issue is that children with this defect a lot of times don't walk with a normal gait. So, you know, I'm like, okay, so he's not gonna walk properly, whatever. As long as I can fix him, like, just start praying. My grandma always said, God gives you what you can handle, so he knew I could handle it.
Practices are important, especially for professional athletes. It's where you get better. If you're not getting better in practice, you won't get better in a game. You know, there's people always watching, coaches are watching. They watch your work ethic. And especially as an older guy now, it's important to work hard in practice because the guys that are younger than you are following your footsteps. So if you're not working hard, they won't be, and then, you know, the team's not going to get better.
So the Crunch's losing streak is up to 3 games in a row now. But the big story again this week, Cory Conacher has been assigned by the Tampa Bay Lightning.
We have to be the youngest team in the American Hockey League, and to bring a guy who started his career in the AHL as a rookie, won Rookie of the Year, League MVP, won a Calder Cup, all in this first year. That leadership for our team is invaluable. You don't see him quit, you don't see him give up. You know, I think that has a lot to do with his diabetes. You know, he always had something to overcome, and it seems like that's something that carries over to him on the ice as well.
Shot scored!
It's tough, because with diabetes, you never know how many minutes you're playing. The more minutes you play, the more sensitive you have to be with your numbers.
The main thing is managing blood sugars during the activity. And that's because we want to ensure the blood sugars are neither too high nor too low. There's a lot of calculating of things in diabetes. We're trying to take over the role that the pancreas would be doing if it was doing its job, which it's not.
Cory Conacher can be a great model. He's showing what this league is all about, how to be a pro player.
We found our identity throughout the week in practice, and I think we just realized how hard it is to win this league. And I just try and bring a little leadership to the group.
Cory Conacher is a great player. You really need him too.
Trying to pull the crunch within one. He's in on goal. Shoots. He scores! It's a one-goal game for Cory Conacher. The circle back to the point. Chernak one-timer. Score!
Yeah, I think this weekend was it showed that we can play in this league and we can win games in this league. We understood that if we play the way we did in second and third, we can win a lot of games.
Out in front, Randa shoots, he scores! Turnover, turnaround shot, score!
Lately, we've just been working hard, and we have guys just doing the right things and in the right places, and fortunately, the puck's going in for us.
With Cory playing in the American Hockey League All-Star game, first and foremost, I'm proud. And I think it's an acknowledgement that he's one of the best players in the world. He scored in his first NHL game, he scored in his first college game. He wants to be important.
But I find that a lot of the children that we see end up being very high-achieving adults, which I think is good for families to know. Because the skills that the children develop managing this condition and that the families develop as a whole working together, oftentimes they end up excelling in life.
The big thing for him is having the pump handy at all times.
Normally play without the pump. I'll keep it on the bench and I'll check my numbers throughout the game, but sometimes my numbers spike up and I have to put my pump in. Usually the reason why I run into problems is because I'm not wearing my sensor. So if I'm going low, it'll shut my pump right off and it won't give me insulin. Whereas if I'm not wearing a sensor, it doesn't know to do that, and that's why I keep going low, and that's when it spirals into some serious issues.
It is challenging to manage diabetes in the context of activity because the insulin takes a little while to get into the bloodstream. There is a lack of spontaneity in the dose administration. So I think that's what they're working on in industry now, is to try to get a fast-acting insulin, and the faster the better. If it can work immediately, I mean, that would be awesome, and especially with a lot of the technology that we have coming, the closed-loop systems and things where you've got computers delivering insulin based on your blood sugar. So the faster the insulin, the better we're going to be at automating the blood sugar management.
We have the All-Star game tomorrow night, and then the following morning, 6 a.m., I'm hopping on a flight and flying back to Toronto. I'm going to go back home for a couple days. We're doing a nice family dinner. My brother's in town. My sister will be there. We have a fun family. It's a good group, and I love being around them as much as I can. It's going to be nice to go home and see them.
Why this game's so easy for me. I'm gonna try something.
One game they want to try.
Ride out 50. He's literally 150.
I cannot stop laughing everywhere. I'm eating my cake. Who's this? Hi, Calma.
I love you, buddy.
I think somebody made fun of me, and then Cory came out and chirped them for chirping me, because I remember
sticking up for her, protecting her.
Yeah.
I don't remember how it really. We were pretty young. How old were we when we first met?
14 maybe. But yeah, I think that's what it was, because I remember looking over, being who is that just stuck up for me?
That little guy over there.
Yeah, the tiny one in the corner. But after that, I remember asking my girlfriend, who is that? And the first thing she said was, "That's Cory. He has no belly button." I was like, all right, Cory with no belly button. I gotta remember that.
In my opinion, it was gonna be really difficult to find the right girl for him. Cory was so involved with how complicated his life was with juvenile diabetes, dealing with bladder exstrophy, focused on his sports, eat, sleep, breathe hockey, that girls weren't a big part of his life. Out of the blue, Shannon appeared.
I was very focused about hockey. I tried to let her know it may be selfish to have a girlfriend because I wouldn't be taking the time to spend with her as much. She tried a few times to change my mind. I can't say I didn't like it because I always liked flirting with her. I always managed to get her away from her boyfriends eventually, and I kind of had the plan to get through college and just try and make a career out of hockey. And finally I did, and it was in Norfolk. It was in January of 2012 and that we started dating.
When you look at Cory and you don't know anything about him, you would say, wow, good-looking kid, nice kid, humble, down to earth. You know, with his bladder exstrophy and diabetes, I always thought that it was going to be a huge burden for somebody else to share with him.
So type 1 diabetes is a real challenge. You say it's a challenge, but it's just so life-altering. It's so in your face. It never stops. It's just day in and day out. Management, management, management.
Years ago, when we first were started dating and living together, he would sit on the lower end. So he didn't feel as low, but he would get super, super low without feeling it.
Until you have it, until you live with someone that has it, you don't understand what it really is.
I remember one time he was low and he was trying to cut cheese. He had this huge knife in his hand, but he started losing his balance. So I'm holding his wrist and we're in the kitchen. I'm like, put the knife down. The roommate comes out. He's in his underwear. He's like, what's going on? He's freaking out. He's grabbing Cory. It was this huge uproar because he was trying to help himself, but he just couldn't.
If you stop managing it, you're going down.
It's unfortunate because you'd hope that they could help themselves, but they can't. He's just not there.
To have somebody come into his life like Shannon and take on this situation with open arms. One of the conversations I had with Cory is that you have to make sure Shannon knows everything, Cory. You know, juvenile diabetes is only part of your life. You have this other part that nobody really knows about. To be fair to her, you have to explain everything. And he said, Dad, I did. And she wants to be here with me.
Bladder exstrophy is something that's kind of been scary to have my whole life. I was born with it, so a lot of things that you go through, only people with bladder exstrophy will understand, but I never thought I would have a girlfriend, let alone a wife, let alone a kid. So it's, to have someone that's as patient as Shannon was growing up and to have her understand, a little bit about bladder exstrophy and stuff like that was an absolute blessing. I always thought that I wouldn't be able to have a family, and I loved kids growing up more so than a lot of people, I think. I just loved being around them. I thought I wouldn't be able to have one myself, so that's maybe why I cared so much about the other babies, because I wanted to just feel what it was like. But it took me a little longer than I think Shannon wanted to have our kid, but I think it was just because I was scared that I would get the answer that I couldn't, and so finally I ended up going and getting checked out, and he said it was basically there's other than, like Shannon said, a couple roadblocks. They said it should be no problem. We just have to do a few extra steps than the regular people, that you'd be able to have a kid. It was amazing. I'm just glad I didn't just wait and not do it, because Cal's the best thing that's ever happened to me. There's no goal, there's nothing that happened in my hockey career. There's nothing else that is more important than Cal, or that makes me feel happier than having Cal.
Before I had him, I'd want him to be a hockey player, but now that I have him, I just want him to be happy and healthy. So if he doesn't like hockey, it's not the end of the world. I'll go to whatever he's got going on. If it's music or being an accountant or a lawyer, it's all about him just being happy in life. And but I'll be his #1 fan if he's a hockey player, that's for sure. Growing up, dealing with all the issues I dealt with, my parents, they never said I couldn't do anything. They never said I couldn't go play with my friends. I couldn't go on sleepovers. I couldn't do whatever it was as a kid. They never told me I couldn't do it, even with diabetes. I'm sure behind the scenes, they were teary-eyed or crying or sad, but in front of me, they always were very positive with me, and I think that's what helped me become a professional athlete. I'm going to try and follow that and do the same with Cal. Do what it takes to, be a good dad. I know my parents were the best parents a kid could ask for, so it's important for me to hopefully follow what they did with me and bring some of that into Cal's life as well. I usually tell kids to dream big. I feel like I'm teaching the parents more than I'm teaching the kids. It's all about the parents having a good attitude, like I said with my parents. So for kids growing up and kids who get diagnosed with diabetes at a young age, nowadays there's a sensor, there's a pump, there's so many different things that you can get that can make life so much easier for you. But I know my parents always tell me that I act like I don't have diabetes, but if you're testing your blood sugar, if you're eating well, if you're sleeping well, if you're doing all the right things to control your diabetes, then you could dream big and live the life you want to live.